Hello, welcome back to Hope for Recovery. My name is Amber, and last video we went over self-care and talked about finding balance in that and a little bit about what the channel is designed for. And so for those of you just tuning in, feel free to go back and check out my other video. Otherwise, I'll just give you a real recap. Hope for Recovery is a channel I created because I myself identify as a person in recovery, and I thought it would be a really great platform to talk about the many challenges and blessings that recovery has to offer. And I remember when I first started my journey of recovery, it was really challenging, and I figured this would be a good space for us to talk about steps that we can take or things, covering certain topics throughout the process to help ease the journey and make sure you know that you're not alone in it. So this week, because we already talked about self-care, which is a really big deal in recovery, we have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves, that we're not pouring from an empty cup. It is something that I would highly recommend that you try to practice throughout the entire process, because when you're not doing that, you may not be able to operate at your best. So that's part of what I'm doing right now is self-care. Anyways, the place I thought would be a good space to begin is powerlessness. And I say that because I can't get this open. All right, so I say that because technically in a 12-step program, step 1 is admitting we were powerless. And that's a really hard thing to accept, because we want to control, right? We want to believe that we are capable of where we're going in our journey, that we design that. But really, there's so many things that are out of our control. So when we are able to admit that we're powerless, we are able to work towards acceptance a little bit easier, making the journey more fulfilling and less anxious. And there's just so many things, but acceptance is hard. When I first started this journey, I was really, really resistant. I was really angry. I did not understand what was happening in my life, but I just knew that I needed to take the leap and follow what was happening in my life. And I knew there were good things that were being presented to me, and there were just so many times where I really struggled with my self-worth and accepting that I was deserving of the things that were coming my way. And so I really fought it for quite a while. But when I discovered my 12-step program and admitted I was powerless over how I was feeling, over other people, over some of my learned behaviors that had gotten me to that place of needing recovery. Plus, I had no control over my history. I couldn't change the fact I was sexually abused as a child. I couldn't change the fact that I was strangled. I couldn't change the fact my family fell apart because of the family disease of alcoholism. I couldn't change the fact I was in a car accident and in pain every day. These were things that happened to me. These were my circumstances. And when I first found recovery, I really struggled with that, because the fact is there was nothing I could do to change it. And when I started my 12-step program and was presented with step 1, admitted we were powerless. Wow. Wow. I had no idea. I thought I was in control of everything. And I came to learn that honestly, the only thing I was in control of was me and how I responded and how I let those things take control of my life. And for a long time, all of those things really did drive my behaviors because, I mean, I didn't know any better. It's sad to say, but I knew the tools that I had growing up, which could have been better, but I don't sit in that anymore. I accept that I can turn those things around, and accepting that I'm powerless and I have no control was the very start to me getting better. And you would think that you'd have more control over your life, but let's be real. You don't have control over other people. You don't have control over somebody rear-ending you. I mean, I'm in recovery right now for my car accident I had back in November 2021, and it tore my life apart. Everything just kind of crumbled around me. And I was really grateful that by the time that happened, I had years of recovery and I had a really big community who came together to support me, because without that, I don't know if I would have made it through that. But I did. I admitted I was powerless many, many, many times. I prayed. I had to go back to basics constantly, where it's just back to step one, admitting I was powerless. It's a hard pill to swallow, because I didn't want to lose my housing. I didn't want to become homeless. I didn't want to not be able to work. I didn't want to be in constant pain all the time. I just wanted relief. But those things, if I continued to hang on to them and stress about them, they were making things worse. So I had to go back and accept that I was powerless over everything that was happening. And instead, I embraced the journey, which is crazy because, 5 years ago, I would not have been able to do that. And everything turned out way better. So now I'm housed, which I'm grateful for. And I have a really great job that I love. And I have a community who supports me. And I have a whole bunch of tools that help me get through. And that's a really big deal. So often, like when I started my recovery, I had no idea where to begin. And honestly, people, friends and family tried to support me, but they couldn't really relate with what I was going through. How could they? They didn't experience all the same things I had. So I had to go out and find my community, people who been through similar things, who could, sorry, I'm trying to find a color, who could support me in ways that I needed, and who could offer that support without judgment and without shame, because all those things I mentioned that I'm in recovery for drove a lot of my behaviors for a long time. And people don't, if they haven't been through it, they don't understand. And so I was really grateful that I found a community of people. I first got into a 12-step program that helped me discover service and helped me discover I wasn't alone in things, and that made a really huge difference. And as I continued to grow through that, I found other support programs that helped me through other parts of my traumas that needed recovery. And so now I feel completely fulfilled and supported. And that just makes such a huge difference in my life, because that's what we need. We need connection, and we need that support. And I'm throwing stuff around. We need that support. And I don't know if I would have that if I didn't accept powerlessness, because I would have kept trying to control all the people around me. I would have kept trying to control myself and, probably my jobs and my kid and, like, you name it. It would have been crazy. And so when we ask ourselves, when we're trying to think about getting better, and we ask ourselves, where do we begin? What's the first step in recovery? Well, it's accepting, it's admitting that we're powerless. And when we can do that, we can open the door of coming out of denial and being more aware of our actions and how they've showed up for us in our lives and in our relationships. And once we're able to do that, we can start to grow and change and decide what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And that's a big deal. And so that's where I would suggest practicing powerlessness. Whether it's, for me, what worked really well was the serenity prayer, that just saying it anytime that I felt like I was trying to control the outcome of something, or when I was stressing over something out of my control, like how other people were behaving or whatever, I used the serenity prayer. And I always often went back to that. And that's what I consider going back to basics. Sometimes it's that. So repeating step 1 and using the serenity prayer, get in touch with my higher power. And I am so grateful for being able to do those things, because that's what helps me heal through all the things that come up in recovery, because it's not a one and done thing. This is a journey. It's lifelong. We don't just do a couple steps or go to a couple meetings or go to therapy and we're all fixed. That's not how it works. Things will always come up. We've had a lifelong, I had 30 years of things to unlearn. And I need the other mirror. I had 30 years of things to unlearn. And I was like, where do I begin? I can't tell you. At first, I remember the tears that were shed. I remember the anger I had. I didn't even know how to process some of my feelings I was feeling. And I was really grateful that I found people who could help me in the journey. They had been through similar things, and they offered their experience, strength, and hope. And I took what I liked and left the rest. And here I am today. And I am somebody I am really proud of. And I never thought I'd say that. And I am just gonna continue on this path, because I know I have the potential of growing exponentially if I just keep at this. Keep admitting I'm powerless. I mean, some days, especially like with my physical journey right now, I can't change the fact that I'm in pain. And sometimes when I'm in pain, some older traumas come up, because when I'm vulnerable, grief happens. And I have to work on grace and forgiveness all over again for some of the things that happened in my life because of the trauma I had, and not having better tools or other behaviors I just didn't. And so it's through this recovery process, I have learned that I have the support and tools to be able to not beat myself up anymore, change the way I speak to myself, call a support person, say that really hard 2% that you are ashamed of to someone else and let it go. Things I just never imagined were going to be possible. And now that I've had enough time under my belt and I'm more informed to see how admitting I'm powerless and saying the things out loud to my community, which is a whole other topic. Building a community of support's a big deal in recovery. We can't do this alone. We're not meant to do this alone. We're meant to do this while connected to other people. And there are so many people out there wanting to help others just like themselves who didn't have what they needed when they started their recovery. And so I just love that part of the process. I see it all the time in people, and each one will tell you, if they're working a healthy program anyways, a healthy recovery, each one will tell you that they're powerless. They know what they do and don't have control over. And as challenging as that can seem, because this is the culture that we live in, and we've always been told that, oh yeah, when you're grieving something, you just need to push it down, stop feeling your feelings, get over it already, or whatever it is that you've been told. And instead, how you process it, you show up with the grief and really feel your feelings and understand how it's driving the behaviors around you rather than causing more harm. And that's an amazing process that takes great strength and courage versus ignoring that it's happening, pretending that you're not upset or angry or hurt. I could keep pretending, but what harm would I be doing to the people I care about if I did that? So I don't want to cause harm. No way. I want to be there for people. I want to help people. I want to be that person that I needed. And when I first started my recovery, I needed people to listen without judgment, which didn't happen very often. You could always tell when somebody's judgy, and I've done some shameful things, but I'm not beating myself up about it anymore, which is funny because through this process, people will remember, and they will not let you show up for your new and improved self. And unless you set your boundaries and you stay firm and authentic in who you are, and you are actively working your recovery to the point where they can see that. And when you get better, you allow other people in your life to get better. It comes around full circle. And so if you can do yourself a favor, I would recommend admitting you're powerless, admitting that you actually don't have control, admitting that to yourself and to another human being. Find people in your life who will let you show up for who you are and for who you're trying to become. It'll make all the difference. So when we think about where to start in our recovery, start with step 1. And, I get it. The 12-step program is not for everybody by any means, but there are a lot of great things that it offers that you can take with you. And I'll say, there's lots of stuff, and there's some other things I don't agree with, which is fine, but admitting that we don't have control over things we really don't have control over will bring you relief. Your anxiety will start to subside. You'll start to have hope again. You start to not feel alone. There's lots of things that happen when we start to get better, and when we can admit that we're powerless. And it doesn't have to be powerless over one's drinking, or powerless over one's drug addiction, or powerless over, those learned behaviors that we've had for years and years. Powerless over the fact that somebody hit you. We're powerless over other people and the way that they behave. We're powerless over those traits, those character defects that we learned, that we've known for so long. But we're not powerless over how we react, how we behave. And so if we can learn new ways, and there are possibilities of learning new ways to build trust and have grace and forgiveness and patience, respect. These are things that it's like, wow, it like amazes me that they weren't showing up in my life all that time, where now I'm surrounded by it, and it might have taken me years to get to this place, but it started with me showing up, putting in the work, and admitting that what I was powerless over, so that I could learn these things, so they could show up in my life, and I could put it to practice to the point where here I am today having this conversation with you. So if you could do yourself a favor, do that. And, going through recovery is not an easy thing, especially on your own. Again, we're not meant to do this on our own. We're meant to have a community of people who can relate with what we're going through. And if you can identify with somebody, stick with it, even if it's uncomfortable. Even if you don't want to build the relationship with someone because you have abandonment issues, just do it. Trust yourself. And that's a hard thing to do through the process too, is trusting yourself, trusting other people. And you know what? People will hurt you. They're human beings. We're all human beings. We are all capable of hurting each other. But presume goodwill. Know that most people are good, and they're not out to hurt you on purpose. And when you find your community, they'll help you learn these things. So, where to begin your recovery? Begin by admitting that you don't have control. And that the only thing you do have control over is yourself and how you react to things. And I hope you're able to find something from this that will help you in your journey. I hope you're able to find community through this process, because they're going to uplift you. They're going to encourage you. They're going to be there for you without shame and judgment. You'll learn how to ask for what you need. You'll learn how to set boundaries. You'll learn how to work through uncomfortable conflict without, I used to yell and scream and raise my fist, and I don't do that anymore. And I'm really proud of that. It took me a lot of work to get there. And I know you've got things that you're not proud of too, but when we say them out loud, it loses its power. We're only as sick as our secrets. So find a way to get uncomfortable and admit that you can't do this on your own. You are powerless, and that you know you want to get better, and that it's absolutely possible. And there's a whole movement of people. It doesn't matter what your recovery in. There's a whole movement of people who are wanting to do the same thing and who want to help you through the process. And that's a really beautiful thing. As soon as you start seeing it show up in your life, you're going to be addicted to recovery. It's so funny. Like we become addicts of whatever it is that's our vice. And then we find recovery and we literally become addicted to what it brings us, what it offers us. that warmth. It's amazing. So you are deserving. You're worthy. You're enough. And I mean, you're totally worth what recovery has to offer. And you know, sometimes this is a big deal. Sometimes family can be a real hard subject in recovery because it carries a lot of anger, a lot of hurt. You had better expectations of people. You didn't expect they were going to hurt you, or, you know, just so many things that come with it when it comes to your family. And if you need to search outside your family, that's okay. Because once your family starts seeing you get better, it'll change your relationships, and you will allow them the space to get better too. That's a beautiful gift. So I hope you come back. Again, this is Amber with Hope for Recovery, and we'll talk again soon.